Hey, what's good, y'all? It's your boy JD6 here with my man. Shout out to KC Sports Authority. Make sure y'all go check that podcast out, man.
You heard the man. And welcome into another episode of the KC Sports Authority podcast. Of course, you can find us over on Spotify if you want to listen to us there. You can also check us out over here on YouTube. And if you are watching, thank you so much. Do us a quick favor. You can subscribe to the channel right now as you're watching. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Help us continue to grow. Your support means the world to us. And we would love to continue sharing more content with you guys. So check us out. You can also hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at KCSA Pod. Well, in today's episode, fellas, we want to talk a little bit of football. It's kind of weird to think that we're finally at the end of football season, essentially, but college football has wrapped up. You know, Michigan takes the title. Not really a huge surprise there, but college football is wrapped up. And now we are into NFL playoff season with the NFL regular season wrapping up. Now up here for CJ and I, we are in the middle of a snowmageddon, so to speak, as we prep for the weekend of playoff football here in Kansas City. But Chris, it didn't sound like you got hit with the snow this week.
No, we got nothing down here in OKC. I shouldn't say nothing. There was a little bit of ice. There was like a quarter of an inch, maybe a half inch if I'm being generous, but it was all gone by 9 a.m. So
not the 6 or 7 inches out.
No, not Jack. Still people freaking out about it though. You know, it is Oklahoma. Yeah. So, but you know,
schools canceled.
Yeah, you're right. No.
CJ, did you get much up in your area?
Oh yeah, like there was like 4 or 5 inches, I believe, but it didn't really like go crazy because it stopped in the middle of the day. But school districts canceled school today and tomorrow, so pretty much knew what it is. But his roads weren't crazy. You know, the city does a great job of trying to get everybody clear. Especially like we got so many people coming in town for like, you know, media, celebrities. So they got to do a good job of clearing everything. So they did a nice job. So
just in time for more snow to drop this weekend for that.
Exactly. It's not really that cold right now, but it's going to drop from like today and Friday. It's going to go from like 30 to like 10. So then from like 10 to 1. So
that is the best. That's football. That's playoff weather, baby. That's
playoff football weather, which is what we want to talk tonight, some of the playoffs. But before we get into the playoff matchups themselves, let's just kind of go back and talk about the season for a minute. Do you guys have any player performances, teams that really stood out to you, incredible surprise performances, letdowns outside of the Chiefs, of course, because we've done that week in and week out. Now we kind of know what the Chiefs are, and we'll get into that later in the week when we do game preview. But just any teams that stood out to you guys or anything about this season as a whole to kind of summarize, you know, your experience watching the league this year.
I think there's one team that had a clear collapse, clear downfall that really is inexcusable. A lot of the other teams that we saw, like the Bengals and the Vikings and the Jets, have excuses. Jacksonville Jaguars ain't got any excuse. I know Trevor Lawrence got a little banged up down the stretch, but like you're in the AFC South, you're 8-3, and to throw it away like that, like that may have been the most embarrassing part of the season, is seeing a team that a lot of people had as high as the 1 seed just because of their schedule and the division they're in. Not necessarily that they were be the best team, but thought they were going to be able to rip off 12, 13 wins. And here they are with 9 wins watching playoffs at home. So that's my biggest surprise of the week of the NFL season, because I really thought that, again, I didn't see them as a Super Bowl real contender, but I saw them as a playoff team that was going to have, you know, a home playoff game or two.
No, for sure. That was definitely one of the biggest disappointments. And even before the injuries, they weren't really playing well. So the Trevor Lawrence thing just made it even worse. But the biggest surprise for me is probably everybody's is the Houston Texans, like a team that I didn't expect to make the playoffs this year. I thought they would be a competitive football team, but to have a rookie head coach, a rookie quarterback, you took 2 guys in the top 5, and those are going to be the pillars of your franchise going forward, and to use those players and obviously a whole bunch of other new faces in the building, and to go out there and not only win the division from the Jacksonville Jaguars, like Chris said, but to do it in dominant fashion. They played the Bengals tough. They played the Browns, obviously, in a game where they get a rematch this upcoming weekend. They've had a lot of games against a lot of good football teams this year, and they've held their own. They haven't looked like a team that's got a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback. So I know they're the quote-unquote, underdog, because it may be a pick-em essentially with Cleveland this weekend, but for them to come in with all this adversity, all this much change in an organization that was looked at as unstable, didn't have no direction, especially coming off the way they've operated the last couple of years with the whole Deshaun Watson situation and the owner and the switching of everything. So for them to go through all that and D'Amico Ryans being a rookie head coach and obviously the scrutiny he went through being over there to do what he's done. And obviously he's a candidate for coach of the year and then have your quarterback be rookie of the year. For those two things to happen in the same team, in the same building, that's a lot. It shows what kind of perseverance they have for sure.
It's early, but CJ Stroud definitely looks like the next man up as far as quarterback talent in the AFC. It definitely is making his counterpart Bryce Young across the country there look real rough as the number one pick. So still got a lot of career left to flip that script around there. But CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans, big surprise. They were fun to watch this year too. They had guys that you wouldn't really consider big time weapons, just making plays game in and game out, and looked incredible. But my surprise team is their opponent this weekend. I think you got to throw the Cleveland Browns out there because who would have thought sitting here at the end of the season that their $269 million quarterback did not really help them get to the playoffs. And it's the guy who probably was retired, but impartially retired, and the 39-year-old Joe Flacco coming out from way off the bench, off the street onto a practice squad, and the Browns just kind of roll off there at the end of the season. You had one of the best defenses, and now they're in the playoffs, and Joe Flacco does not look like he's a 39-year-old quarterback. So I think they have a big-time performance this season to get in. But it's funny, Chris, when you said the team that kind of fell apart at the end, I thought for a second you were going to say the Philadelphia Eagles.
They're in the dance, though.
Yeah, they are.
But
They are. They started out, was it 10-1, 11-1, and then they collapsed in the year. They definitely don't look like the Philadelphia Eagles of last year. I thought that was a team. I said it to somebody earlier this season. Without the tush push, that team probably loses 3 more games this year and could be sitting out of the playoffs. And again, the tush push is an incredible play, but they just don't look like the Philadelphia Eagles that they did last year. Jalen looks a little rough this year. They've had injuries, and they still have a lot of guys on defense, but their defense still struggled at times. How about the question I was going to ask you guys? Is the MVP race officially wrapped up now with Lamar?
Yes.
Did he take that away that last game, or I guess 2 weeks ago?
Yeah. No,
he
locked it up, especially when you add in how Purdy played 3 weeks ago against Lamar, and then Lamar not only cements himself as the favorite against San Francisco, he backs it up
the second,
blowing out Miami, which what you say what you will about Miami, it's still a big time game that had a lot of eyeballs on it. So it's locked up. I mean, I think there's still a good argument for Christian McCaffrey because the Niners are the 1 seed, but he's a running back, and so it kind of ends there. It ends there.
It's the quarterback award.
What it is.
Yeah. So
speaking of other awards, then let's kind of go through the other important ones here. Who do you think ends up winning Coach of the Year, and who's most deserving of it?
Steve Spagnuolo, Coach of the Year.
Chris been on my bandwagon. It should be Spagnuolo, but all in all, I think Kevin Stefanski will win. But I think D'Amico Ryans is more.
I think D'Amico deserves
it. Like we said, rookie quarterback, so many new faces. Literally had to just go across country from California to Texas, bring his whole family, new franchise. Like we said, all the turmoil they've been through, not only to make the playoffs, but win the division that most people thought the Jaguars had sewn up half of probably 2 months ago. So, but Kevin Stefanski, like you said, Keegan, is everything. As much as turmoil, adversity the Texans have been through, the Browns is times 10. You lose your $260 million quarterback. Your star top 5 running backs out for the year, Nick Chubb. Who else did they lost? Jack Conklin, their starting right tackle, was out for the year. They lost multiple safeties, multiple linebackers have been out for the year. So to have so many injuries they've had and to be in the best division of football in the AFC North and still find a way to not only make the playoffs, we're talking about them making the AFC Championship if they get the right matchup. So I think Coach of the Year, it will go to Kevin Stefanski. If I had to bet money, that's what I would pick. But my personal pick, I think I would choose D'Amico. So.
Yeah, they were the team that had the best turnaround. I mean, they go from a top 3 pick to a wild card team that, wild card team. I mean, they won their division, which I don't think that was anything expected of them in year 1, maybe not even year 2. Yeah. Let's go to next. I think it's pretty obvious, but is there any outside shot for Puka Nacua to win Rookie of the Year?
I wish a little bit.
It should be in it. It should be 50-50.
It's not though. It's the same thing with CMC and Lamar. CMC has a better season historically speaking. When you put Lamar's numbers together, great quarterback season. It doesn't quite compete while CMC's numbers do. And the same can be said with Puka and CJ. CJ's had a very good rookie season. Don't get me wrong, first rookie quarterback to, I think, win the division since Andrew Luck or something like that. So that's impressive. But like Puka over 1,500 yards, like that's just insane. I know you don't get
Especially for
bonus
a
points.
rookie.
Yeah, I don't.
He missed time.
You don't get bonus points for being a 5th rounder because it's just rookie. But like that adds some element there. Like CJ Stroud was the 2nd overall pick. This was a guy that people had expectations for that could bet on CJ Stroud to win Rookie of the Year.
That was a
You
bet.
could not bet on Puka Nacua.
He wasn't even available.
Not till like halfway through the season.
Exactly.
If
So like,
I'm lucky, my long shot play will pan out and I'll get a nice cash.
So like, you know, that shouldn't be an element when voting for this, but like, come on, you couldn't even bet on the dude, and he's gonna be
from a kid like CJ
all the
Stroud, we know he
second-place
got the
votes.
playbook like early. So
Yeah, right.
Puka
So I don't know.
wasn't getting no reps with the ones when he came into camp.
So yeah,
He wasn't getting reps with the ones.
He wasn't even supposed to be probably
exactly. He
3 or
was with the
4 on
third
depth
string
chart.
all
to
rookie
start.
weekend. So.
I personally think it should be Puka, and I get why it's not.
That's what I'm
but
saying.
I get it. CJ Stroud looks good. He's a quarterback. He won his division. He's hosting a home playoff game. But like, just to the historical aspect, we already did this once with Justin Jefferson and Herbert.
And
Puka's had a better year than Jefferson did his rookie year, and Stroud has had a worse year than Herbert had his rookie year. You take those two things, I think this year,
and Puka's doing it with Cooper Kupp.
Exactly.
Cooper Kupp in and out the lineup. It didn't matter.
Thielen was still balling. So, like in that comparison, Jefferson did have the kind of something similar.
I mean, Cooper Kupp, no Cooper Kupp.
It's not good. Puka has 0 shot. You know, we're sitting here talking about Puka has a 0% shot, even though he's my rookie of the year.
Yeah,
I would take him too. And that's not even crazy. Like CJ's doing what he's supposed to do. Ball out.
Exactly.
Puka's not supposed to do this.
You don't get points for that. You don't get.
Yeah, but he's not that good apparently. So if you go out there and break a record as a guy who's a 5th round pick, he wasn't even getting reps with the ones in camp. CJ was getting reps before he even stepped in Houston.
You are preaching to the choir, CJ. You're preaching to the choir, man.
It's always the quarterback award.
It's another quarterback award, unless all the quarterbacks
we're picking Puka on this show.
Correct. It would be our pick. If you take out the fact that he was a rookie, just the season he had in whole is top 4 receiver season on the year, and probably top 10 in the last 20-year performance.
1,700 yards.
He's going to finish top 5 in offensive player of the year voting too. CJ Stroud ain't doing that.
No.
So,
but do the Texans then sweep defensive rookie of the year too with Will Anderson?
Yeah.
I didn't really watch a ton.
Ooh.
Jalen Carter, I think he made his presence
a lot like his team.
Neither one of them popped for real.
Yeah, that's the problem I have.
On strong down the stretch.
Yeah, like
Jalen Carter fell off a little bit while his team fell off. I think that plays a factor. I think it's going to be Anderson, even if Jalen maybe had a little bit better full body of work.
I'm cool either way on this one.
Yeah. I'm not stressing. I'm not stressing too much either way.
How about
Anderson's going to get it?
What usually becomes the best position player non-quarterback award for offensive player of the year?
Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, CMC. It was Tyreek was there, and then he got hurt. So.
And he would have broke the record if they didn't pull him in the last game.
Yeah,
or the second to last game.
So even though CMC missed some time too, you still think he has the edge?
Yeah, he scored how many touchdowns in how many games in a row?
That's what I'm saying. If they didn't pull him, he would have broke the touchdown record for their franchise, the Jerry Rice touchdown record for the season.
Right.
They pulled him, so he could have had that record if they wanted him to do it. They just didn't want him to get it. So I mean, Tyreek Hill obviously is in the conversation. He missed time too, so
can't be second. Yeah,
2,000 yards versus a touchdown. I think if Chris McCaffrey would have done it, would have been 25 touchdowns for the year. I think that's what it would have been. So. 2,000 yards and 25 touchdowns. Both are crazy.
Kyron Williams was right. I'm not Kyron Williams. Raheem Mostert was right behind him though.
Right. Yeah, he had like 21 there. Yeah.
And that gets overlooked quite a bit. Which I know
what's crazy is Mostert might be finished third in voting for that award.
Yep.
Wasn't
available beginning of the season either.
Yeah. And then Puka right there behind them. Rookie right behind.
Shout out Raheem. Make my fantasy team.
And then last award we got here.
I him in the past because he always got hurt. So thank God.
Yeah. Last award we got then is Defensive Player of the Year. Is this the Myles Garrett Award this year?
No.
Considering the Browns finished.
It's Myles or Micah, either of those two.
It is TJ Watt. Dude had 19.5 sacks, leads the league in tackle for losses, leads all defensive linemen in tipped passes and fumble recoveries. Like, I know the Steelers suck, even though they're a playoff team. They're in the playoffs a lot because of what TJ Watt did.
I agree with what you're saying. I think it's got voters for
19 and a
like
half
we already know.
sacks on a
Hey,
team like, with
hear
no
you.
other
I hear you.
storyline.
Did you
And,
guys
and
see
even with
the
that, Miles is still the
stat?
favorite. That's the crazy part.
That is insane.
That's
I love
Did you
Myles
guys
Garrett
see
too.
the historical stat about the Watt family?
Yeah.
That both TJ Watt and JJ Watt are the only edge rushers in NFL history to have multiple 19 plus sack seasons in their
And their
career.
brothers. Like, that's insane.
That's
Two
crazy.
DPOIs too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And TJ could do it a third time.
Right.
He's still pretty young.
Yeah.
Yep.
TJ.
Okay.
Like the best player, like defensive player, in my opinion, has been Myles Garrett, but the best pass rusher this year has been TJ Watt, no question. But I think overall, Myles Garrett's just done more for his team.
I don't know if that's
been amazing
true
this
though.
year.
I think that is a overblown thing with the whole Myles
Oh, yeah.
Garrett thing. Like, Myles Garrett is a dog. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think he's clearly the second. I think the three are. There's not really
That's a three,
wrong
right
order,
there.
Micah. But like, there's been a narrative that Myles has been better, and I think when you look at I wish I would have brought the numbers up, but like, I know for a fact that that TJ Watt leads the league in tackles for losses and passes defended for defensive linemen. So, like, if you're tipping ball, you're making hitting the running back and sacking the quarterback. Like, as an outside linebacker, sure, maybe Myles Garrett does a little bit better setting the edge and moving the runs back inside where he's not getting tackles and he's having his linebackers clean up. Like, that stuff's good on tape, but like, I don't know if that's what I'm using to decide my player of the defensive player of the year.
Mm-hmm. Now both guys are definitely eligible. It's gonna come down to who the media prefers, because I know TJ Watt already had it, and they kind of like Myles.
That's why I feel like it's going to go Myles.
Yeah, I think they've already given it to TJ. So now, if TJ would have broke the record, if he doesn't get hurt, which sucks, then I think he obviously would have got it. But I think Myles gets it by default. We know they're not going to pick Micah because Mike already thinks the media hates the Cowboys, so we know he's not getting it. So.
Yeah, right. Mike,
But the Cowboys are America's team.
Micah's
allegedly said they hate
a dog.
All right, then let's go into, this week we had Black Monday in the NFL with multiple coaches getting fired. Had several of the obvious ones. Atlanta Falcons get blown out at the end of the season. Arthur Smith cries on the way out and then gets canned that night. Doesn't even make it to Black Monday technically. The report came out that it was determined they were firing him as soon as the game was over. And I'm of the opinion it's an NFL game. If your guys can't stop the other team from scoring, boo-hoo. So go Saints, keep scoring on them.
You would have done the same thing. That's the crazy part. Why are you crying? You would have done.
Here's the thing. I initially was 1,000,000% with you guys, but then my dad, 55-year-old man, brought up a good point. Did it lose even more value because it was out of victory formation? Like Atlanta, those defensive players have pride to where if they come out in I formation or something like that, and it looks like they're going to run a play, Atlanta's trying. They came out in victory formation. That was literally like a make-a-wish touchdown. Like that.
I don't know. It almost looked like the tush push.
Yeah, but it looks a little bit like a make-a-wish touchdown to me because they came out in victory. Like,
well, I think
does it lose a little bit of value because of the formation? I get the crying and stuff. The crying stuff is like, get over yourself, Arthur. You're a grown man. It's an NFL team. But like, does we got Jamal in the end zone lose value because of the formation they were in and the effort Atlanta was giving?
Well, and supposedly Jameis audibled and he wasn't supposed to.
Yeah, I have no issue with any of that. But the reasoning behind it was to get Jamal in the end zone after
it was clearly to get Jamal in the end zone.
After he didn't get in all year after coming off a year scoring 17. Yeah. But was the formation a little bit more like
it definitely was not very sportsman. I mean, I don't have a problem going for it. It's like you're saying, the formation and then following it up with that is not very sportsmanlike because that formation is intentionally there to. I mean, you could say, well, a punt formation is intentionally there to punt, but then they ran a fake. But yeah,
it's a little different. But Mitchell
you got two bad football teams. I don't really care.
I know. We spent a lot of time talking about this play of two teams sitting at home. But
yeah, that's true.
Mitchell Schwartz did bring up a good point that it gives defensive linemen an excuse to come firing off the ball.
Yeah, because they still do that. So
they don't. They really don't. But because teams are going to start pulling that stuff.
You get the ones that want to be like all practice squad All Americans.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like, okay, bro, we're in victory formation.
Okay, going from the one guy per team to the entire D line being like, it's a little different. I don't know.
I just feel like,
all right, yeah. Let's stop talking about it. Two teams that
both of them suck.
1, 2, 3, Cancun.
Bye.
There's a lot of guys teaming up in Cancun this year. A lot of coaches, Brandon Staley gets fired after his embarrassing loss to the Raiders. Of course, that was before Black Monday. Ron Rivera out in Washington, wasn't really surprised there. It was very mediocre. He kind of reminds me of what Jeff Fisher was. Just a good guy, good leader, but never really going to push your team that far. And again, he didn't have the best of talent. But Ron Rivera out. And then I think the one that surprised me the most personally was Mike Vrabel today. I kind of find that to be a shock, but I'm thinking there's some tea leaves to be read here. Now the other thought is Belichick out? Is he going to leave? And if he does, then what perfect opportunity for Vrabel to slide back into the Patriots? I don't know. There could be something going on there. But of these coaches that got fired, are there any ones that surprise you the most? Or is there a coach still hanging on to his job that probably should have been canned?
I don't really have an issue with any of them. I mean, the Vrabel one was a little surprising, but
I thought Dennis Allen was going to get fired.
It was Dennis Allen should be fired.
I thought he was out of there.
He doesn't have the locker room.
I thought him and Arthur were both like,
oh my gosh, yeah, Dennis Allen should be out. Like, imagine getting a job solely because of your connection with Sean Payton, and then you fail at that job, and you still have job security. Like, these are grown ass men in the locker room. Again, we're talking about the Saints, but gosh, man, that team, that franchise is something else.
So which job going then into the offseason do you think is the most desirable with how things stand currently without any other coaching movement? But what's the most desirable? Because everyone wants to say the Chargers. But honestly, you look at that cap situation they've got the next couple of years, and it's pretty ugly.
Probably the Commanders.
Yeah, with the
they
draft
got like
pick they have.
5 picks in the top 40.
They got like $70 million in cap.
Hella cap space. They moved off Chase Young. They moved off Sweat. You could pick a quarterback now.
They could still move off McLaurin and open up even more cap space.
Yeah, they can move off Terry after June 1st, post-cut date. I think the owners already opened up the possibility of saying whoever the GM is gets to pick the coach. So if you're a coach, you can essentially bring in a GM that you're okay with and have a partnership. So I think that's the best job. Money, picks, flexibility, power.
Are you worried about that division, though?
The division does suck. So it's kind of like you can't have it all. Like the Chargers division is not any easier. Would the Falcons job be better? They got cap space too.
I like
they do, but I mean, if you listen to Arthur Blank talk about how he wants to run his team, I don't have a lot of faith in the ownership.
Right.
I mean, Arthur Blank. I mean, he is a reasonable owner. He's not really a guy that wants. He's not a Jerry Jones that gets in the way. I will give him credit for that. He kind of lets the coach do his job. So if I had to rank the top 2 jobs, probably be those two, then the Chargers. Because like we said, the Chargers cap space is terrible.
You got the quarterback. You got some weapons.
You got the quarterback, but what are you going to do around him if you ain't got no money? So
yeah,
and they still have to figure out how to get his contract into the.
Right.
Hey, he had a huge year. I know half of his sacks came in one game. He still finished with 17 and a half. But and how about the Raiders?
Yeah, the Raiders.
Antonio Pierce. Should he get consideration to keep that job? I know that's not typical NFL thing to let the interim guy keep the job, but to me,
they already
second time
screwed it up once by letting the special
Bisaccia go.
Yeah, Bisaccia,
because he's got the locker room.
How about we just let Kellen Moore coach the Chargers? How about we just do that?
I saw that today.
How about we just let
him get his interview?
Dude, let Antonio Pierce go. That dude is a Super Bowl winning middle linebacker that upset. That was the lead. I know it was Strahan's defense, but he was the green dot player on that defense that held this at that point 19-0 Patriots to or 18-0 Patriots to 14 points in that Super Bowl.
Yeah,
like that dude is a winner. That dude is a winner. That dude is a leader. He clearly has the locker room behind him. The Raiders looked so much better, especially on the defensive side down the stretch. They steered straight into their weapons on offense. They stopped doing this willy-nilly stuff. It just was like throw to Devontae Adams and hand the ball to Josh Jacobs.
They actually did what their team was designed for.
Right.
Wow. Shocker.
As simple as it is, I think he did all. You go get a quarterback, whether it's restarting Jimmy, which I think is terrible, but you know what I'm saying. Like go figure out something at the quarterback position. You're looking at a 10-win ball club next year, like for real.
He's next year's DeMeco Ryan for sure. Just because of the situation, great defensive-minded guy, gets an opportunity. Now, I know in DeMeco's case, he was on the defensive coordinator all year, but you get a guy who clearly has respect from the players because of his own background as a player, can win the locker room over, and he's going to be a hot commodity, as well as a lot of other guys out there. But I guess I do want to ask you guys, what do you think happens with Bill Belichick? And if he does leave the Patriots, which job do you think makes the most sense for him?
It's weird. I do think the Chargers job makes a lot of sense for him because clearly
he
He would go
wants
in and
control.
figure out the cap space, I think, because he
Yeah.
is all about let's get rid of cap space.
well,
He
and
wants
also
control. So
his defense works wherever. I mean, there's a
yeah, his
reason that
defense goes.
there's a reason the Patriots have more wins against 500 teams than the Dolphins did this year, is because their defense is good regardless of who's playing. Even though they had a ton of injuries on that side of the ball too, they lost their. He was going to be the Gonzalez corner kid was going to be a defensive player of the year candidate, and he was out like week 5.
Yeah.
And they still had a
hurt.
great defense. Like, and there was Judon got hurt, and like they were still like, so the defense is fine. So you go somewhere that has a quarterback already, because that's clearly been the issue. They got Herbert. You figure out the rest. I think the Chargers makes way too much sense just because it goes strength on weakness together.
He's not really the best at drafting quarterbacks, so obviously the Chargers is the best spot for him. But the cap space situation kind of sucks, which almost lines up because he's good at finding guys in a great value bin and finding back end 5th, 6th, 7th round guys. But I feel like that Falcons job, just the weapons are there. Like if the Falcons want to do the smart thing, which they should have went and put an offer sheet in for Lamar Jackson, which I still don't get to this day. That's stupid out of my mind. But if you want to go correct your mistakes, call Chicago, say, hey, what do you want for Justin Fields? And then if you call Bill Belichick, we have weapons in place right now. We'll make this trade for Justin Fields. The defense for Atlanta was solid. You have a number 1 corner in A.J. Terrell. That's a great – and it's in a division that's terrible. Like, if I'm Bill Belichick, I can go down to Atlanta. If I get a quarterback, we can win right now. So
they were close even with a mediocre quarterback.
Yeah,
exactly. Like he don't even have, but I'm just Justin Fields is the dream scenario. But if they did decide to get somebody media, I don't know who would be like available that's on the market right now. It's kind of trash. But
Kirk Cousins would be the kind of
he didn't get hurt. Yes,
thrown out there
because
he's a guy that can come in and.
Here's the thing.
Win.
This is
if he wasn't hurt. I would like that.
DJ, tell me if I'm off base here, but would Kirk Cousins work in Atlanta? Like,
yeah,
I know Matt Ryan did.
I'm off now.
I know Matt Ryan did for years, but like it just that was their guy that they drafted in the city rally. Would bringing in a guy like Kirk Cousins work in Atlanta?
If he wasn't hurt, I think it would be a great stability piece until you find somebody. But this year's quarterback class is so deep. Even if you don't like Kirk Cousins or if you don't want Justin Fields, you have hella options in this draft. You can go get a Mike Penix if you want to. You can go try to get a Jaden Daniels from LSU if you want to. I'm not even talking about the cream of the crop like obviously Caleb and Drake are the top 2 guys. There's so many quarterbacks in it. If you want to go bin shopping like Bill Belichick usually does and get Bo Nix, if you think you can make him work, there's a lot of quarterbacks in this draft that you can put in Atlanta to say, hey, this offensive line can block and they have weapons in front of you. All you got to do is just put somebody in there, like you guys said, just to pull the strings. Like Justin Fields is the gusto. That's the dream scenario. That's like that's like 1B option after not getting Lamar Jackson. But if I'm Bill, I'm seriously looking at that division. It's trash just like the division you're in. You have all the weapons in the world, and Arthur Blank doesn't really get in the way. And he has deep pockets. He'll pay if he really wants something. So
there's 3 teams, 3 scenarios that I don't think are realistic. First one, I do think the Bears, if the Bears thought I think Eberflus did enough to kind of keep it, but not enough to really solidify it. If the Bears called the Patriots tomorrow and said, hey, what's it, again, maybe the Patriots say he'll give us Justin Fields and we'll give you Bill Belichick. But if Belichick could get himself to Chicago, I think that's a division that he could go win, even though the Lions are up and coming and maybe Jordan loves something. He's got a defense that turned it around second half of the year. He's got players on there he can utilize and then get in there and do that. But the other 2 teams that I think kind of dark horses. One, I'm going to say the Vegas Raiders just because Brady is out there. And, maybe there's, all right, I was wrong. I struggled without you. Let's marry each other again in a different capacity and get back. And then maybe dark horse, Tom Brady comes back out of retirement for the Raiders next year. That's
46 years old.
Yeah. But the other one I saw this week that didn't really get talk about him going there because I don't think they're going to fire their coach. But the New York Jets, if they decided that Robert Saleh doesn't have the best locker room presence to win, Aaron Rodgers is there. And if Aaron Rodgers says, hey, I want Bill Belichick next year, the Jets go.
That would be an amazing staff to have Saleh as your DC and Bill be the head coach.
Yeah. But again, I don't think any of those happen. I think Honestly, I wouldn't even be shocked if Belichick still stayed back in New England one more year, just finished out the contract, and then
Yeah.
see where he goes.
What would be crazy, think of this, is that there's the Harbaugh rumors already that the Raiders are looking at him if he wants to go. Imagine if Bill goes to the Chargers,
And
Andy
Harbaugh comes
Reid,
here.
Sean Payton, and Harbaugh all in one division would be
Talk about a fun division.
insane.
Best coaching division in football
Ever,
Easy,
like
not even
of all
close.
time.
in history. Yeah,
Easy, not even close.
like
You got
that's
Hall of Fame coaches everywhere.
there is more than a 0% chance of that happening. I'm not saying it's a
It's
high
true.
percentage, but there is more than a 0% chance.
I
Of
think
that.
it's almost more likely Harbaugh would take the Chargers job over the. I mean, assuming he's in the finalists and he wants to come back to the NFL, I think it'd be easier to move on because then the Chargers wouldn't have to give anything up to get Belichick over, so they could just go sign Harbaugh and then
Right.
let the Patriots fill it
I
out. But
saw
yeah, that would
Harbaugh
be
talking
that
about
would be an
spring ball after the team.
insane division. It'd be like if I
That's
know we talked about
that's
this
just a front.
before. It would have been like if Aaron Rodgers actually went to the Broncos, like everybody thought he was, and we'd have this intense division of quarterbacks.
Right.
But yeah. Okay, well, we spent way more time on the season as I thought we were. That's all right. Let's dive into the playoffs. And of course, Chiefs fans, we are going to talk Chiefs playoffs specifically later in the week. We'll preview Dolphins game. For this one, we just kind of want to talk about to the NFL fan as a whole, just a collective group of NFL fans looking at the playoffs, because playoffs are just the best time of year for football, regardless of if your team is in or not, because you get a lot of great games. So let's get into the playoff matchup. It was kind of a wild last week of the season. A lot of teams, there were still like 18 teams up in the air for their playoff status coming into week 18 of the season. And it all kind of wrapped up how it did. Before we get into some of the matchups this weekend, I just want your guys' take on which teams look good coming into the playoffs and which teams that made it in you have the biggest question marks. And then which team do you think has the easiest path to the Super Bowl?
Man,
Easiest path definitely be the Niners. The NFC is just, I mean, if Philly's not Philly, Detroit's secondary's trash. If
and
San
the
Fran
Cowboys
handles their
against the
business,
Niners.
they walk to Vegas if they handle their business. So that'd be like the easiest path for me.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any way you could argue any of the other teams, because especially as us all being Chiefs fans, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that can make an argument for the Ravens or the Bills or something, but like the AFC, say what you will, it's Lamar, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes. Like, there's no easy path. You're gonna have to beat one, if not both of them, to get to the Super Bowl, which is insane. Exactly. Meanwhile, there's no proven. I mean, Matt Stafford is the most proven guy over there, and he's the 6th seed that's gonna have to play on the road the whole time. So it kind of feels like that.
And I think that's the right answer too, because the 49ers have proven this year that they can still win. They have so much talent on both sides of the ball that even if Debo misses a game, Kittle misses a game, Ayuk misses a game, even Christian McCaffrey, or even if Purdy doesn't have a great game, they've got enough weapons that they can go out and win. We've seen on the other end of things in the AFC, if Lamar struggles, that team doesn't win. If Josh Allen's turning the ball over, the Bills are struggling. If the Chiefs receivers can't catch the freaking football, then it doesn't matter how good Patrick Mahomes is. We've already seen that it is even tougher for him to go out and win when the guys around him can't do it. So, yeah, the 49ers have the best team around them. I think the Cowboys are also up there as far as just a full in-depth roster, but we know what the Cowboys do in the playoffs, so they're going to find some way to shoot themselves in the foot. But yeah, I think the 49ers have the easiest road, just because they're just a matchup nightmare. I think all across the board. Who are you going to stop on the defensive line? Who do you target? Trent Williams is playing at an
all-pro level,
just an insane level. No words to describe how good. Like you could throw out him as an MVP candidate on the year. I mean, just the work he's doing there. But yeah, they're just a nightmare matchup. And plus, like we said, the Eagles look nothing like the Eagles heading into the playoffs. They had a players-only meeting this last weekend after the game to basically rile everyone up, get back on with the coaching staff. Nick Sirianni's a loser. Can't stand the guy.
Worst, bro.
You can say he's a
loser. Hope to see him
That's
fall
the team
flat
that
on
has
his
the
face.
most question marks right there. Would
you know what sucks too is because I think so many of the Eagles players are likable. Like, I think Jalen's likable. I like AJ Brown a lot. I like Jason, obviously. I think Jalen Carter, his rookie year, showed some personality that's fun. Like, I think, Brandon Graham is freaking hoot. Like,
Love
they have a
Brandon.
lot of likable players, and then they just
But
have
people
an
don't like their coach.
8-year-old at head coach.
Yeah.
Like,
He
it's
acts like a
just,
child.
yeah.
Chiefs,
Do you guys think the
Pee Wee
Eagles'
Herman.
problems is because they lost both coordinators, and that's maybe more of an impact than
I think
most
it's because they don't have
casual
an
fans
adult
think?
leading them. I think they got by it last year because everything went well the whole time. And while this
Well, they
year,
also last year they had a very, very favorable schedule. Very
Yeah.
favorable last year. And they took advantage of it. So,
yeah.
and this year
And
the defense took
NFC
a step
is
back.
still trash.
Yeah, like you took a step back on both sides of the ball, which is the offensive side of the ball is more shocking to me because yes, you switch coordinators, but you still have all pro talent all around you.
Same weapons.
Your offense should not be struggling. I understand you can have lapses in the season where you don't play well. That's fine.
Right.
Their offense took a major step back, and you have all pro receivers, all pro tackles, multiple running backs all around your quarterback, and you're struggling to score 20 points. That's very.
I wonder if that knee of Jalen's was more injured than they let on. Like, I know he played hurt for a good chunk of the season, but he just didn't look like the MVP candidate he was last year at all.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He had
After
the
the first half of the season.
They had a
the whole
favorite.
offense took a step back, which is very sad. That's the team that has the most question marks. Like we just said, coaching, defense, offense, everything's lacking compared to last year. And you could say the same similar things about like the Chiefs, but at least from like the Chiefs' perspective, the defense took a drastic step up this year. Like they've been a top 3 unit, in my opinion, this year all year. So for them to come into the season, they're doing something at a high level. I don't know what Philly's doing at a high level right now on either side of the ball.
The tush
Like,
push.
Tush push, that's the only thing they're good at right now. They're struggling in the pass game. They're not giving DeAndre Swift the football, which is freaking stupid. The defense their secondary is terrible, and they brought back both their corners. Bradbury and Slay are both back, and they can't cover a soul right now. So yeah, that's
and
the
they
team
made midseason trade for was it Kevin Byard from Tennessee?
Yeah.
Yep, Kevin Byard, the safety from Tennessee. Yep. So
And still,
that's one of my early picks, early leans. I'm leaning Tampa Bay Buccaneers money line. Like I can't trust Philly right now. They're on the road in Tampa. If there's any team that can make it ugly and find a way to win a football game, give me Todd Bowles, man. That's one of my early leans for sure.
I like that quite a bit. How about just out of NFC and AFC? And of course, we're going to quickly get into this weekend's games. But as a whole, who is a dark horse team that you like out of the NFC and a dark horse team out of the AFC that if things go how they need to could find themselves in the Super Bowl?
Cleveland and LA.
Yeah, that's the answer. And people don't like I'm sorry, I can't sit here and say the rookie head coach and quarterback are going to make a deep run. They may win a game, but
it wouldn't shock me, but
I think there's another word for them if they're in the Super Bowl more than dark horse. I don't know. Freaking nightshade unicorn. I don't know what it'd be called, but like and then on the NFC side, like the NFC is just the Bucks are the 4 seed. Everyone loves talking about Love, who's played a lot really well down the stretch. Hasn't played a lot of good teams down the stretch.
This is his first playoff game.
Yeah, and it's his first playoff game. Like again, he's another
against a Cowboys team who have a ton to prove.
It's in Dallas. Dallas is good at home. They suck on the road, but they're good at home.
Right. And
so give me CeeDee Lamb 2+ touchdowns.
Absolutely.
The dark horses are the 2 teams with quarterbacks that have won the Super Bowl, not named Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, exactly.
How about the Detroit Lions, a team that started off, shocking everybody and beating Kansas City to start the season, and we saw for the first chunk of the season that was legit. They were a good team. They've been fired up by Coach Dan Campbell, who probably should get consideration for Coach of the Year too. But they kind of fizzled out here and there. They had a couple games that they dropped. They probably shouldn't have. Do you guys think that they have enough on that team for a deep run, or is this hey, welcome to the playoffs for the first time in 100 years or whatever it is, but we'll see you next season?
They're facing the worst team they could face right now because the Rams are hotter than any team arguably going into the playoffs right now. And we heard the news that Sam Laporta may not play this weekend, which is probably one of the biggest news I don't think anyone's really talked about. If he's not out there, that changes everything for their offense. Obviously, Amon-Ra is their number 1 weapon, but Sam Laporta has been the second best tight end in football to me behind Kelsey this year. You can make an argument he's had a better year than him just based off his target production, yards after catch, getting in the end zone. He's a dominant player, like most of us expected him out the draft. So yeah, Detroit is a good football team. Secondary is kind of lacking. They don't really cover people that well. So playing the Rams and you got to play Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, that's not the best matchup for them. And like we said, the game's indoors, so there's no weather involved. So if it comes down between a Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford shootout, I'd probably lean McVay, especially after what I just saw Dan Campbell pull. I know the game, it did mean something, but not everything. For you to have 3 chances at a 2-point conversion, you went for it once. You had the debacle with the whole check-in eligible thing. I get that, regardless of how you feel.
Kick it.
You went for it again and jumped off sides, Micah Parsons. You got lucky with that because if you don't jump off sides, the game's over. You decided to go for it not once, not twice, but 3 times. That's just negligent coaching for me. And I know people love Dan Campbell, and I'm not bashing him. He's an amazing coach. But in that moment, you were very stupid. Don't ever do that. If you did that in the playoffs, I would fire you. I'm not lying. Like, you have the game in your hands and you try to win it. I don't mind you being aggressive. But when it gets down to the third opportunity, even with the second one, you should have kicked it. You try to go for it a third time, kick the field goal, go to overtime. You can win that game. But for you to just give it away because you want to be ultra aggressive, that's the definition of being a bad coach in that moment, in my opinion.
Yeah, it reminded me of the Josh Allen pitching to no one in his first playoff game against the Texans. Remember when he just chucked it? Like it was really Dan Campbell's first playoff game because it had a lot to mean for seeding. They would have technically been in the running for the 1 seed had they won that game. You know, it would have been a long shot, but you're feeling really good about the 2 seed playing the Packers. Like there was a lot on the line. And while he's been steady and looks good all year, he threw the ball to nobody behind him, like at the last second. And so I'm with you on that 1,000% on the Dan Campbell down the stretch. It scares me a little bit with how he handled that Cowboys.
Yeah, just doesn't have the postseason experience to get out of it. Like I said, the Rams are coming in hot. Sean McVay is a really, really good coach. Matthew Stafford finally looks healthy on the year. Cooper Kupp's healthy. Kyron Williams might be the most effective running back in the league right now. Puka Nacua, again, we've talked about that. So I think it's safe to say, as far as our first matchup here for the weekend, Rams and Lions, that the Lions playoff season ends before it even really gets started, and the Rams, take the early victory there. I think we're all in agreement there. Let's look at some of the other wild card matchups here. There's a couple of good games, but that Browns-Texans game is one that's getting a lot of interest just because the fact that the Texans now came on strong at the end of the year, won the division, took it from Jacksonville, took it from the Colts, and are in the playoffs for rookie head coach, rookie quarterback. CJ, I know this is one that you've had a couple of thoughts on how this game goes. So let's do this one first. CJ, what is your opinion on this Texans-Browns game?
It's going to be a good game. Obviously, it's a rematch. CJ Stroud didn't play the first time, so it's going to be a good matchup to see him get back out there. No Tank Dell, but Nico Collins has been a resurgence for them. Dalton Schultz. It's funny that Dameon Pierce was obviously a top draft pick for like running back for fantasy-wise a year ago, and this year he didn't really do much. So for them to come into this game, it's a good opportunity to see how they decide to run the football. Because I agree, like Chris said off air, you can't go in this game just airing the ball out. Not when you have to try to pass block Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith, and that's the best outside of like our secondary. I think that's the best trio of corners in football when you think of like Denzel Ward and Emerson and obviously Greg Newsome. That's a great secondary and arguably the best in the league. And you can't just sit up and throw the ball 30, 40 times a game against that front and think it's going to work. Because if you do, Jim Schwartz is going to come up with a good game plan. He's going to force turnovers, get your offense off the field, and you're going to lose the football game. So, in my opinion, I think Houston has to figure out a way to get Dameon Pierce involved, him and Devin Singletary, to have to find some kind of balance. Because we know CJ Stroud's been all-world this year. He's been an amazing quarterback. He's 4,000-yard passer, rookie of the year. He's had an amazing year. But if you think you're going to go in this game and just air it all over the field, you're going to lose. I don't think you're going to go in and just beat Jim Schwartz like that. So, in my opinion, they have to run the football. And I think Cleveland has to do the same thing. Joe Flacco's been averaging 40 pass attempts since he came in off the couch. I don't think a 38-year-old should be throwing the ball that many times, even if he does get sleepy after 8 o'clock like he did versus the Jets on Thursday night. So both teams have to figure out a way to have to find balance because, like we said, the last game was a shootout. It was a high-scoring game. Special teams touchdown, defensive plays, and I know the over-under is like 44.5, so I think it may hit over just because I think both offenses are good enough. But in my opinion, if you want to win this game, you got to figure out a way to run the football, keep the other team off the field. Because both of these teams, we just have known they both can score 30 if they have to. So if I'm the team that gets the ball first, I want to milk the clock and keep them off the field.
Who's stepping up in this game for the Texans? Because, like, no Brown's out. Tank Dell, we know, is out for the year. Robert Woods is questionable. Like,
Gonna be Dalton Schultz, baby.
It's like you have this great secondary that's gonna make it really difficult for Nico Collins all game, like guaranteed.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna beat this great defense
That's why I said
the tight end all game.
Yeah, you got to run the ball. Like Dameon Pierce has to have a game this week. Like that's the only way they're not gonna go in the ball, throw the ball like you just said.
I think there was a reason that it was 36-7 one point. I know it was Keenum and Mills, not CJ Stroud, and so I don't expect it to be quite that level of a blowout. But like, I just think this is a really, really tough matchup for the Texans.
Yeah, they're the kind of defense like the Chiefs that even against top receivers, they can still go and hone in on one guy and slow him down to enough of a point where he can't have that large of an impact on the game. But let's shift gears to another game here. Then Steelers and Bills. Bills coming on hot at the end of the season. The Steelers somehow limped into the playoffs still. Mike Tomlin continues his impressive run of playoff appearances and winning seasons. Hasn't had a losing season ever. It's incredible. But, I mean, come on. This is no TJ Watt. The Steelers are outmanned, outnumbered, and yet somehow I still have myself here thinking the Bills could still do something stupid and Josh Allen could throw 3 picks. And we find this game being, like 17-14 on a couple field goals.
I mean, sure. I mean, it's the NFL, but and if TJ Watt was it, maybe the TJ Watt thing. If TJ Watt was playing, maybe we'd have a more serious conversation. But outside of any given Sunday, it's going to be 31-10.
They played each other last year, and the Bills came out and went crazy. So it should be the same thing, 21-zip.
The Bills are probably the hottest team coming to the playoffs.
As great of a coach as Mike Tomlin is, I get what Steeler fans are saying when they want him fired, which I know Travis Kelce came out and said that was crazy. There's been a lot of discussion.
Because they just want their offense to be better. That's why.
I think they just want to pick bad enough to where they can fix it in the draft. The issue is you just stuck. You're not a Super Bowl contender. You're just stuck in mediocrity.
Stuck in limbo every year.
You know how many times over the last 5 years have they made the playoffs only to get routed in the first round? The Chiefs did it to them. The Bills are going to do it to them.
The Browns did it.
The Browns, that Browns got their first playoff win in 20 years against the Steelers.
But if you ask any fan, you say, "Are you willing to be a bad football team for 1 year to get that top pick?" They don't want to do it. So stop complaining about if you really want that good player, you're going to have to be bad for a year.
Should have been playing Mason Rudolph the last 3 years.
Exactly. So yeah, this
all right.
Outside of a pick six from Josh Allen early and a punt return, which both are very
important. He's going to throw one.
He could fumble it.
Lock it in now. Lock it in. He's going to
throw over half an interception is almost free money anytime.
Probably minus 200 at this point.
Still doesn't feel like enough.
Then Cowboys-Packers. Again, I think we all believe the Cowboys are the better team, even though the Cowboys do what they always do and find a way to mess up the playoffs. But this is a game they should easily win. How big of a win do you think this should be?
Double digits. Cowboys money line.
Yeah, I like it to be close early. I think the Cowboys, they just have that, they feel that pressure. And so I think there's going to be a little nerves in front of the home crowd, especially with it being the Packers, especially with it being McCarthy's old team. But I think they come out of halftime and just, it becomes too much for Jordan Love. Micah gets on him a little bit.
Defensive touchdown for sure.
Yeah. So
this
one has a way better chance of being an upset than the Steelers-Bills.
The Packers have a legit shot for sure.
Yeah, the Packers have a way to win. Jordan Love just plays turnover-free football and continues to make those tight window throws, which he's done fairly well, this year. But still, man, it's going to be a tough task.
And then 2 more left here. One we're going to talk about. The other one we're just going to kind of tease at. But we've got the Eagles, who again are kind of limping into the playoffs, so to speak, against the Buccaneers, who kind of came on stronger towards the end. And, Baker Mayfield is having somewhat of a redemption season. CJ, you already said earlier that this is one you kind of like the Buccaneers at home since they did win the division, so they get the home game. Does the Eagles, whatever potential window they had open, I'm not saying it necessarily comes to a close this weekend with a loss, but they just look like a wounded animal that is ripe for the picking right now.
They don't look like a good football team. Like we said earlier in off air, they're just, I don't know anything they're doing well right now. They didn't lean on the run game in the last month until the Giants game with DeAndre Swift. Apparently Jalen Hurts has a broken finger on his throwing hand, on his right middle finger. So A.J. Brown almost tore his ACL. Thankfully it didn't in the Giants game this past week. So your best receiver's hurt. Devontae Smith is also dealing with an injury. You haven't been leaning on the run game. Your secondary is terrible. I don't see it's lining up for them to go down there, get a 3-and-out. Mike Evans over the top, like Chris said. The Bucks get up early. Jalen Hurts starts to press, throws a pick. Bucks get the ball. Rashad White up the middle, gets a touchdown, and next thing you know, Philly's playing from behind, and their offense hasn't really shown the ability to really keep up that bust this year. So it's lining up for a Bucks money line pick for me just because their defense plays better at home. Obviously, their secondary hasn't been that much better than Philly. Like, they're not really a great defense overall. But if I had to pick a team whose offense is playing better or who I would give my money to right now, I would give it to Baker Mayfield with Mike Evans before Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. Philly's offense just looks broken right now. From Nick Sirianni to the OC to everybody, it's just not a good unit right now.
Yeah,
So
they
if it's
just
an
don't
ugly
have
game,
they don't have good vibes on that sideline or that clubhouse right now.
It's definitely an ugly game. Take the under if you're going to bet it. It's going to be like first one to 17 wins. Something nasty like 21 to 17 is what's going to be.
I mean, a lot of Phillies games have kind of been like that this year too. Even though they have a high power offense,
they just don't score. That's why it's so weird. You got
Same
all
thing
these
with the
weapons.
Chiefs.
Like, I haven't heard Dallas Goedert's name barely this year. Like, they have weapons for days, and Philly's struggling to score. You added Julio Jones. Don't know why they did that. He had scored 2 touchdowns last week. Who would have thought we'd say that in 2024? So it's like, I don't get Philly's offense right now. I don't know what they're doing over there, honestly.
Yeah, but did you see what the Bucks did last week to the Panthers?
But I felt like the Bucks just went out there and said, we're going to get 9 points and leave with a dub.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's how they started because it was still
they
winning
really
in. If they lost, we'd be talking about the bum-ass Saints in the playoffs right now. If
Todd Bowles would be fired.
They both bums then.
Exactly. So
the whole NFC South, none of them deserve to be in the playoffs.
Everything you're saying about the Eagles is right, but they're still playing the Bucks.
I don't know, bro.
Like, who get 2 free wins. Like, yeah, they're a 9-win team or whatever they are. They got 2 free wins with Carolina. And,
they still almost botched that one.
So, like, I get it. Phillies looked bad. Philly's mentally a mess right now, I think. But
they just look tired.
They not still slug out a 20-13 win in Tampa pretty easily.
They should.
I think
they could easily be 13-10.
Like I don't know. My theme with all my picks is I am taking experience in every single one of them, and I know necessarily from a player one, the Bucks game is a little bit closer, but let's look at it. We've all taken the Browns, have a Super Bowl winning quarterback. We all took the Rams, Super Bowl winning quarterback and coach. You know, we like the Cowboys with a more experienced quarterback and coach. You know, and so I'm taking the Philly for the same reasoning. You know, the Bills, not Super Bowl, but playoff experience against the Steelers. Like the Phillies and Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts have more experience than Baker and that Bucks team. So, like, I'm going Philly for round 1. Now I think they get absolutely blown out the next week against either the rival Cowboys or the Lions, whoever they would play, depending on how it falls. But, like, I think they win week 1 this first week.
We'll see.
And then the last game we have up here, of course, is Miami coming here to Kansas City to face the Chiefs, who don't look like the typical Chiefs offensively, at least. You know, still one of the toughest defenses in the league. And now we get another opportunity to shut down Tyreek Hill for a second time in the year. But it's going to be a nasty game. The elements are going to play a factor. It's going to get cold this week. It might snow again. The Dolphins, typically do not show up very well in cold games. Mike on the sideline there, he's going to have to be wearing his joggers all the way down to his ankles and not just rolled up.
No capris this week.
No capris. It's going to be cold. We're not going to dive into any of that really here because, like I said, we're going to have a full-on episode dedicated to this. But any initial thoughts you guys want to throw out there for the listeners before we break down that game later?
I want to do the say it out loud test. The Hawaiian quarterback beats the 2-time winning Super Bowl quarterback in a blizzard. Does that sound the
Hawaiian quarterback
goes into a blizzard and beats the best quarterback in the league in his place? Like, does that just sound like, regardless of what the Chiefs have done, does that sound like something?
Try typing that up. Tua turned the ball over twice at home, and he's going to go into Kansas City with 0 to -degree weather, swirling winds, and he's going to go in here and play well. But you couldn't play well at home with the elements against a bad Buffalo. Exactly. Buffalo secondary is bad, and you struggled versus them. And now you're coming into Kansas City on the road with the elements. Now you're expected to play better. Yeah. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up.
Against the Chiefs team, who I think is going to be very hungry going to the playoffs, because I think this franchise understands how much of a letdown a chunk of the season has been. And I think, again, we're going to talk about this later in this week, but I think they flipped that switch this week. It's playoff mode. They're locked in. They're focused. They're dialed in. I'm sure there'll still be some miscues here and there because we haven't had a game without one. But I mean, yeah, it's a weekend in Kansas City where it's going to be so cold that ticket prices are plummeting as we speak. So if you couldn't go to the game before because you thought it was too expensive, as long as you're able to brace the cold. I did that several times in the last couple of years. Some fun, very, very frozen games. The Indianapolis Colts game comes to mind. That was awful cold, but held out for that one. But yeah, if you guys want to go to the game this weekend, there's tickets available because it's getting colder and colder by the day. And so there's ticket prices dropping. But yeah, a lot of headlines coming to this. Of course, Tyreek Hill back in Kansas City. There's a lot of dynasty talk if the window's open or closing with this current group. You know, is this Chris Jones' last game in a Chiefs uniform? Is this his last game at Arrowhead? All that we're going to get into later this week, of course, with the three of us here because it is playoff season. But that's going to wrap us up here. Just wanted to talk about football as a whole, not just Chiefs, but just NFL as a whole because we love watching football. And there's going to be a lot of fun games this week. I'm sure, CJ, you're going to have a couple fun bets to throw out this weekend for you've already got your money line parlays. I'm going to look for some ridiculous parlay that'll definitely not hit this week to throw in.
You're going to hit this weekend.
I hope so. I've got my upset money lines and a couple TD parlays I want to do. So we'll probably throw some of those out this week. And then, like I said, come back later this week for Chiefs Dolphins talk. We'll have that probably a day or two before the game. Game is Saturday night. In the cold
on Peacock, unless you live in Kansas City.
Unless you live in Kansas. So, Chris, I don't know how you're watching the game.
Chris,
I bought it 2 months ago, knowing the Chiefs are going to be put on Peacock.
That's smart. That's all right. Well, that's going to wrap us up here. Chris, CJ, Keegan here. You can find CJ at CGZ81. You can find Chris at 10penny88. Myself at Keeganator_11. We'll have plenty of more stuff coming this week. So if you are watching here on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button again so you don't miss out on future episodes because we still got KU basketball. We still got KU football talk. We're going to dive into some NBA. And then at some time here, I swear, CJ and I are going to do some more sports betting talk, maybe some NBA and some big futures bets. So stay tuned to all that. Check us out, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at KCSA Pod. Of course, you can also check these other two guys out here on the Aftermath podcast at Aftermath_KC. They will have the game preview on their version of this later this week. And so stay tuned for that. But until then, guys, we will catch you later.
Go Chiefs.